Chloe, thank you again for making the time to do this. And I guess to begin with, a question that many people might have is just, you were born in China, you have spent a lot of time in America, going back to being a film student at NYU. I know Spike Lee was one of your professors, but I guess I just wonder, how did you develop this interest in the American West in particular, not just with Nomadland, but even with your terrific film right before this, The Rider?
Well, I was living in New York. I lived in New York for 12 years, and I
Hmm.
didn't think I could tell good story in New York than the ones that's already been told. And also, I was getting into my late 20s, and I felt a bit disconnected to myself, to be honest, and not be able to hear my own voice. And when that happens, people tend to go west, wherever west of wherever they are. For me, it was going to the heartland, and I ended up in South Dakota and really fell in love
Yeah.
with the Badlands.
Mm. And on this film, you have not only a leading lady, but a producer in Frances McDormand. And I wonder if you can just talk about how you two first connected and then what it is, having now worked with her, if you can pinpoint it, what is it that makes her so good every time in totally different kinds of roles? But I mean, just a really incredible lady. I know both behind the screen and in front of it.
Yeah, I think you just pointed that out. It's behind and in front of it. And I think she's so authentically herself, and she tried to live a life that's authentic to herself. And she brings that with her, whichever character she plays. We when we first met, we just both took off our shoes and sat on the floor. It was pretty telling, and
Yeah.
we all know she's an incredible actress. She can do anything, but for me, it was the most important thing was her ability to be vulnerable and to not always know the character in the moment, to not always know what's going to happen, and yet be completely present.
Yeah. Now, aside from her and David Strathairn, uh, there are quite a few people in this film who viewers will not necessarily recognize from previous movie going experiences, and that's actually
Mhm.
a thing that has been true of your both of your prior films, The Rider, and of course, Songs My Brother Taught Me. And I guess I just wonder, what convinced you? I think even with your student films before that, to gravitate towards people who haven't acted necessarily before.
Well, I find I often need their help to help me build the world that I was entering. I often go to the peripheral of the society and I don't know those places enough. And I find having someone like them, you aren't just casting an actor, you're also casting their lives and their friends and their homes. And for my first feature, it was also sort of the limitations we had. We just could not find someone that could play those roles. And then I developed that interest and that carried on.
Hmm. So you write, produce, direct, and edit your films, and have been actually Oscar nominated for all four of those things this year. I'm curious, which of them do you personally enjoy the most? Is there a part of the process that you enjoy the most?
Editing.
Editing. I kind
I
of
should say
thought you might
directing, I
say that,
guess,
but
but
why? Why?
editing.
Maybe
If I'm
what
honest,
makes
it's
it?
editing. Um, it's the limitations that comes with editing. Like
Yeah.
this is the footage that I have, and I need to problem solve. Every day I wake up in the morning, I need to make things work. And by the time I go to bed, I see a result. You might get deleted later, but it's on the timeline. Writing is really frustrating because you don't know, especially screenplays. It's not like a novel. You don't know what it's going to end up like. And directing as well, you have to set limitations for yourself. So I like to play in the box. That's when I'm most creative, when I know where my edges are.
So, in terms of, people always reference other films when they see a movie, whether it's reviewers or moviegoers. A couple of things that I've noticed have come up in relation to Nomadland. You hear comparisons to The Grapes of Wrath, like obviously another great movie about people on the road and going through hard times, but also The Searchers. And I wonder if you can talk about just visually. I don't think it's coincidence that Francis's character ends up back at the home where she had lived before, but then turns and goes back into the wilderness, sort of Ethan Edwards esque. But I wonder if you can just talk about the decision to do it, to frame it the way you did, and to almost end the film on that.
Yeah, well, if there's a modern day John Wayne, I think it's Francis McDormand. And that is, yeah, right. And that aside, you know, my DP, I really share that credit with my DP to make those decisions. And he grew up on Westerns. But we went on a trip to scout Empire, Nevada. And I walked into that house and I walk out of the back door. And he took a picture of me. And we go, oh, that's the ending of the movie. It just happened to also reference searchers. And in retrospect, looking at it, it's quite meaningful that we love those movies and we pay homage to them. But this time, the women sort of, the man is dead. Her husband is passed away. And
Hmm.
the memory of him is that house. And she's the one that leaves the homestead and go into the very unknown and potentially dangerous wilderness, like Ethan
Yeah.
Edward did. Mhm.
That's great. Um, it's interesting to hear. It's almost like a litmus test in a way. Some people come away from the film and they say they are feel so happy for Fern that at where we leave her. Others that they feel sorry that somebody, that America in the 21st century, that can be where a person of that age finds themselves. I wonder, what do you make of the time, this post-recession America period that you're kind of setting your film in, and what becomes of this character?
I when I make a film, I always wish people can take away what they need to take away. It's really not about my loud voice. It's about how they can serve my viewers at different time of their lives based on what they're going through. And I think, but there is a very straightforward message, which is the elder care issue in this country, and just in sort of
Mhm.
capitalist economy in general. That if you can't contribute to the economy, then you're not deemed worthy, which is a shame because elders has a lot to contribute to the health of the society.
Yeah.
But there's also other messages in the film I think people can take that isn't political.
Absolutely. Last question, just for now, is you are. I believe you've already made this jump, but you go from Nomadland, this beautiful but not mega budget art house film, to Marvel's Eternals, which I think has got to be just a huge transition in some ways. Maybe not, but I'm just curious how you've adjusted to this much bigger canvas that I believe you're now at work on.
Well, the jump from the writer budgetarily feels to Nomadland feels like the jump from Nomadland to Eternals, and the most important thing was to set limitations for myself, at least like in terms of the cinematic choices that I had to make, is to set these healthy limitations. And since day one, I have something most important to me is that my producing team are my friends. Like they're people that from the very beginning not only want to make the same film as me, but want to make it the way I want to make it, like how we want to make these films. We were on the same page, and when those things are in line, any kind of disagreement you have or like things you challenge each other is only healthy, and I feel safe enough to be vulnerable and to make mistakes and then to learn. So I've been pretty lucky in this journey.